أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Good evening, y'all. This is Atta Mubarak with another episode of Sidewalk and Gutter University, Swag University. And we just continuing on. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Sidewalk University is where we graduate the streets through knowledge of self. Our slogan and our motto is Know Thyself. And in the last couple of episodes, we went over like a lot of like epistemological questions, cosmological questions, philosophical questions, but really it's all geared around like knowledge of self. In this episode, we're going towards like the current state of the world, the current state of rap, hip hop, America, and how we move forward. So the question today is, how do we move forward and move the world forward? So swag is a colloquial term for, as we know, for confidence. Okay. And confidence comes from knowledge of self. That's the whole idea. Sidewalk and Gutter University, confidence, knowledge of self, swag. We graduate the streets through knowledge of self, right? Because we don't have to have this identity that's limiting and doesn't allow us to grow into the larger world. The world is a big, beautiful place and dangerous place at the same time too. But it's a place that we haven't fully claimed as our own. It's whole continents that us as Black people have yet to travel to and do business with and set up, business in diplomatic relations with. So the first topic we're gonna go over is culture. So culture, so if you do any kind of martial arts, you learn the concept of yin yang, or even if you don't, even if you just, that's like a popular concept in just period. And yin yang, yin yang says that there has to be a balance of power, right? If there's darkness, there have to be a certain amount of light. If there's, if there's a cold, it has to be heat, right? But in martial arts, there is what's called the five animals, and they are the tiger, the crane, leopard, snake, and dragon. And they represent, the tiger represents power, the crane represents gracefulness, the leopard represents speed, the snake represents form, and the dragon represents speed, power, form, the dragon represents technique. So it's speed, power, form, technique, and gracefulness, right? Speed, power, form, technique, and gracefulness. But so what happens in nature is that the tiger, even though we call a lion the king of the jungle, lions don't live in jungles. Lions live in the Serengeti on grasslands. They live in big prides, families called prides. And the tiger is really the king of the jungle. Like in India, throughout Asia, the lion is the biggest cat in the world, probably the most impressive, dangerous predator. The Siberian tiger can weigh up to like 950 pounds. But on average, the Bengal tiger is like 550, 600 pounds. But you're talking about 550 pounds, 9 to 10 feet long, probably like 12 feet including the tail. Can run up to like 40 miles per hour, can climb trees, can jump 20, 30 feet in the air. I mean, it's like, it's a literal nightmare. You feel me? In terms of like just the sheer power and killing ability of the tiger, right? But what martial arts tells us is that even though the tiger the tiger is the SHIT, right? The tiger is, you cannot like Nothing can stand up to the tiger, right? But that's not true. Because what martial arts tells us is that the crane, this bird, this bird can challenge the tiger. And it's footage of it on YouTube. The first time I watched it, it's a crane, a white crane, flies into the cage of 3 tigers in China and defeats these tigers morally. It's like the crane don't even have to like physically defeat the tiger. The crane is so graceful and so smooth in its ability to elude the tiger that and then go on offense to where it scares the tiger to where they just say like, man, nigga, I'm out of here, man. I'm about to go in my little cage or whatever, and I don't know what y'all tripping on. Leave this nigga alone. Basically, that's what happens, right? So, I don't want to use the same vocabulary, so I'm gonna say that really shifted my perception of power dynamics. So in nature, the crane fights the tiger, and then the leopard fights the snake. So in Africa, the leopard is fast. It's like a miniature version of like a tiger. But the leopard fights the python, the African right python. Or in South America, the jaguar, which is the counterpart of the leopard, the jaguar fights the anaconda. It's the same fight that plays out. Speed versus form, right? Because the snake has no form. The snake, because it's always changing form, it's the ultimate embodiment of form, right? So what happens is like the leopard grabs hold of the snake, it's biting it, it's trying to kill it, right? But the snake eventually it knows how to move itself to where it wraps itself around the leopard and clamps down to where the leopard got to let go, and then it starts all over again. So long story short, all of this all sums up to say that the system of checks and balances in nature, that God set up a system of checks and balances in nature. Nobody, no animal, no nothing has supreme authority, because nothing has supreme authority, right? Nothing has supreme authority. The lion in Africa is like the biggest predator, but a honey badger that's like only like 90 pounds can come through a punk like three, four lions. Like all of this is on YouTube too. So in nature, nothing. God set up. Only thing that has unlimited power and dominion and control is God. That's it. Not no tiger, not no lion, not no nothing. Everything balances out. Like in America, in our political system, we have a system of checks and balances where the 3 branches of government can balance each other out. So there's no so we don't get a dictator. The president don't run off and say, hey man, I'm the king now, and then 4 years later, hey, I'm God, y'all worship me. And that has happened in history, right? Why is this important? Because in America, there has always been this power imbalance between black people and white people. White people, Europeans came to this country, they committed genocide with the American government, and the pioneer settlers committed genocide, went to Africa, kidnapped people, and enslaved them. And white people have always had political and economic power, right? Political and economic power and military power. But black people have always had, we don't think of it like this, but this is what it actually is. Black people have cultural power. I'm gonna say that one more time, man. Black people have cultural power, right? So the reason why cultural power is so important is because it didn't while white people can write laws and legislation to change certain things, or They can put their money behind certain enterprises or agendas, or they can send the military to go conduct military operations to achieve a certain objective. That doesn't change how people think, feel, and believe and act, but culture does. So I'm gonna say that again. Black people have cultural power. Black people have the ability to change how people think, feel, believe, and act. Black people have the ability to create a culture that America adopts, and then the rest of the world listens and follows American culture. Black people have that much power. That's the point I'm making, right? So, I'm gonna read this. I wrote some notes, so I'm gonna just go through my notes and read them out. So our culture, when I say our culture, I mean black culture. Black culture has been adopted and appropriated, depending on how you look at it, to some degree or the other, by the entire world. Hip hop culture and rap music has influenced every country, from the idioms people use, like the figures of speech, like realist. So like on like it trips me out because I remember like 20 years ago, growing up in Compton, I remember we used to always say, I'm gonna flip this, I'm gonna get that, boom, I'm gonna re-up, I'm gonna flip that, right? You go on YouTube now and you hear these white people using our language. They say, I can show you how to real estate gurus. I can show you how to flip a house, right? Or so that's just one example. Or many non-black people wanting to say the word nigga, right? To Fortune 500 companies using our music to advertise their products, or our food being staples of American cuisine like mac and cheese, fried chicken, barbecue, cornbread, because we share our culture freely with the world, and the world obliges many of these so because we share our culture freely with the world, everybody adopts our culture, and then eventually it don't even be like like after they adopt it for a certain amount of time, it's not even black culture no more. That's the only issue I have with black culture and black people. We sharing our culture, right? So for example, like mac and cheese and all, like soul food, right? There's this series on Netflix called High Off the Hog. I believe it's on Netflix. It could be on Netflix or YouTube, but it's called High Off the Hog, and it's about how black food is like the foundation of American cuisine, right? Now, a lot of white people might be like, no, it's not, whatever, because like you go to white areas and they have soul food, but they call it Southern comfort food, right? White people call soul food Southern comfort food. Now here's how you reconcile this difference, right? Because let's go back 200, 150, 200, 250 years, right? Black people were enslaved, and blacks were the cooks for white people. So who is making the food, right? So, and in that Netflix series, they talk about how Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, their cooks, like invented like mac and cheese and all the stuff that we like, right? So, long story short, what gets me is that white people try to act like they have a different culture from black people, but we have the same culture, bro. We lived together for years. Our women raised their children, breastfed their children. We live together. We work together. So it's like they want to have this different. They want to differentiate themselves, but it's like you can't. Our mothers breastfed y'all, bro. They raised y'all. We mixed. Slave masters slept with their slave girls, man. So it's like we want to keep this, and this is a topic for another episode of how there is no pure culture anymore. But we want to differentiate ourselves. But the long story short, whether it's jazz, rock and roll, R&B, funk, we have always been at the forefront of culture and creativity. Period. Right? So, a couple of definitions of culture. Culture, the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. A refined understanding or appreciation of culture. The customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. The attitudes and behavior characteristics of a particular social group. So hip hop culture evolved out of a long and rich trajectory of black culture to the point where we are now, in which our culture has global reach and influence. The question is, where do we go? Where do we take the world, right? Because like, think about this. I majored in history. I'm a historian. So I've studied different periods of human history, and I can definitively say that there has never been a period in human history like the one we live in now. Like back 500 years ago, and this is going back to like there's no pure culture. 500 years ago, every different ethnicity or nation lived separately, and they didn't intermingle. They probably traded, but you could really say that there were pure cultures. The Aztecs, the Zulu, right? The Mali Empire in West Africa, Spain. Like there was different, actually separated China, India, Iran. Like people were actually different Native American tribes, the Lakota, the Blackfoot, the Sioux. They actually spoke a certain language, lived in a certain community, ate a certain food. They didn't mix with anybody, right? It wasn't no cultural amalgamation. It wasn't like cosmopolitan like we are now. But now that's not the case because of this thing called globalization. So the world is like a global village, pretty much, and the culture that is the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of the world, is black culture, bro. Period, point blank. And we have power. So look, my theory is that my theory is wherever we go, black people go, popular culture will follow. We have the potential to ruin or save the world. In an attempt to describe our ambiguous status in America, our scholars have coined the term nation within a nation. Like, so those early 20th century scholars, they basically said like black people was like a nation within a nation because we still are segregated. Residential segregation is worse now than it was in the 60s. So if this is so, I like to think of our culture as a natural resource, right? The commodity that we could most readily convert into financial power. But this requires ownership and a semblance of cooperation and unity, and that is the topic of another discussion, right? So the unanimous decision amongst its practitioners is that hip hop has 4 elements: DJing, MCing, breaking, and graffiti, right? Looked at more universally, we could say that DJing is just music production or music. MCing is poetry over music, so music, poetry. Breaking is dance, and graffiti is visual arts, right? So we have music, poetry, dance, and visual arts, right? As hip hop, we call it DJing, MCing, breaking, and graffiti. There have been discussions about the extra 5th element of rap, but I like to propose that there's only 4 elements of hip hop, but you can have a zero element, right? And I like to call that knowledge of self. So if we go, 0 is knowledge of self, DJing or music is 1, 2 is poetry or MCing, 3 is breaking or dance, and 4 is graffiti or visual arts. I'd also like to propose that just because art forms started one way doesn't mean they have to continue unchanged or unenhanced. We should not rule out the possibility of allowing our art to evolve and not be confined to limited definitions, but this will require us to redefine who we are, which is the purpose of this channel, right? The core principles of hip hop as coined by the Zulu Nation are peace, love, unity, and having fun. So the Zulu Nation is like this organization, this New York-based organization out of the Bronx, and they basically produce like people like Africa Bambaataa and they basically it's like a fraternity, and they basically said the core principles of rap, hip hop is peace, love, unity, and having fun. So if we look at the agreed upon elements, they don't necessarily result in us attaining these principles except for having fun. So yet peace, love, and unity will result from a deep knowledge of self. So in other words, with DJing, MCing, breaking, and graffiti, we can have a lot of fun, but only through knowledge of self can we create peace, spread love, and have a working unity. The purpose of this channel is to provide a space to create dialogue for us to arrive at a deeper understanding of ourselves as individuals and as people, as the first and most integral step in having peace, unity, freedom, justice, and prosperity. So common ground. So there is this idea in world history called Pax Imperium, which says the greater the relative peace that reigns in a certain place, the greater economic prosperity exists in that place, in that time, in that place, right? So in other words, you can't have economic prosperity and generational wealth if you live in a war zone, or if you live in a semi-war zone, right? Or if it's a protracted war, it ain't gonna happen, right? People don't come out at night to go eating because they scared that somebody's gonna shoot, or it just don't work. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't work. So you need peace for economic prosperity. The main idea is that if we are to ever achieve any semblance of financial progress and generational wealth as a whole, we must establish relative peace in our communities for us to sit down and come to some kind of lasting understanding that we desire. We must gather around a common ground. If I could summarize Black culture, I would say that it is rooted in a deep belief in a singular higher power, in diligent, dedicated striving in one's line of work, commitment to excellence. So basically, we believe in God and we believe in working hard. Like any other nations, Black people are not monolithic. Black people are diverse, right? We must learn how to not only tolerate but value our diversity and use it to our advantage. At the moment, we have so many factions that vie for the central position. Nation of Islam, Moorish Science Temple of America, the Ma'at people, Hebrew Israelites, Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, Baptists, Methodists, Bloods, Crips, folk nations, people nations, oracles of Ifa. You can go on, man. I can just spend the rest of the video naming off the different organizations that niggas is in, man. So the success of peace rests on the ratification of a constitution, an agreement, a peace treaty, a code of cooperation that itself is established on principles that don't change. What are those principles? That's for us to discuss. That's for us to arrive at as a collective, right? But so the next phase is thug life is dead. Okay, thug life is dead, and I love Tupac. I'm Tupac's biggest fan. Okay. The reason why I can say thug life is dead is because I'm Tupac's biggest fan. I studied him. I grew up on him. I know what his core mission was, and this is not taking a shot at any him or any of the people he used to rap with. But this is what it is. This is not a shot at Tupac or an attempt to discredit his movement, but a natural evolution, right? So in the same way, like I use this as an analogy, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started the Nation of Islam started. Honorable Elijah Muhammad took it over in 1933. It's almost 100 years that the Nation of Islam has been in operation. I could guarantee you that that Honorable Elijah Muhammad would not want people who say they follow him to be selling bean pies on a corner 100 years after he came with his mission. Because the mission of the nation was to establish self-sufficiency, do for self, and essentially like the foundations of a nation, right? So in that same vein, I know for a fact by just listening to so many Tupac's interviews, his songs, understanding his background and his philosophy, the code of thug life. The code of thug life was like a kind of like a peace treaty among like the street, but basically like gang members across the country. His stepfather Matulu Shakur helped him write it, but it's basically like a peace treaty to like ensure that there would be safe zones and safe times in certain areas, in inner cities, and then also like Tupac had an idea of like, if I can get he got 6 million sales from his song I Ain't Mad at You, right? So the one single, he got 6 million people to give him money, right? So he said, if I can get 6 million sales off of I Ain't Mad at You, Snoop Dogg got 3 million, the Dog Pound got 2 million. That's 9, 10, 11. That's 11 million. If we could get 11 million people to pay for our music, we can get 11 million people to vote for us. So he had this whole like idea of like a community program where like rappers would sponsor a community, and they would have like football teams, and then the Nation of Islam and then the Deacons would come out and be for like security, and then they would have like concerts. But the only way you can get into a concert is if you had like a certain GPA. Like Tupac was really like forward thinking, man. So what I'm saying is that I know for a fact that Tupac wouldn't want, it's 96, 2006, 16, 26. It's almost 30 years since Tupac has passed on from this physical world. I know he wouldn't want us to still be walking around talking about thug life and niggas is thugs, bro. I know for a fact. That's backward thinking, bro. So thug life was a diagnosis of what the disease of racism did to American society. The hate you gave little infants fucks everybody. The hate you feed a certain segment of the population from childhood not only hurts them, but the people who operate the system of discrimination, marginalization, and disenfranchisement. Example, as a whole, white people sailing the dangerous seas and kidnapping a segment of the human race, relegating them to subhuman conditions, reluctantly giving them quasi-freedom after arguably the bloodiest war in U.S. history, setting up a system of U.S. apartheid and second-class citizenship, creating the myth of the black male criminal in order to capitalize on free labor via the 13th Amendment was a self-fulfilling prophecy. By practicing redlining, what do we mean? By practicing redlining and restrictive covenants, deindustrialization, white flight, the FBI dismantling positive black leadership through COINTELPRO and targeting the black messiah, and then the CIA having cocaine shipped into the U.S. left a vacuum for what we call thug life, the black urban criminal lifestyle, an identity. Many white people point to this way of life to justify their racist views. So they say so essentially, it's like thug life is a creation of America, black and white people. It's not just, I'm not gonna say white. White people are solely guilty because we play a part too. But I'm saying, but white people can't sit and point their finger and say, look, black people are criminals, because you gotta look, were black people criminals before you kidnapped them? So you have to look at the whole story, right? So, and then they say basically white people in their attempt to deny their guilt and their complicity in the crimes that they committed against black people, white people say, well, look, they're morally depraved. They're criminals. They do drugs. Well, all of those things you just said, white people do that more than black people, or if not as equally. But you're not going to sit up here and say that. You saying black people have more sex than white people? Are you saying black people do more drugs than white people? So all of this, so like, and it's not, and we don't want to get into pointing fingers, right? But we want to get to a point of, we need to get to a point of a country where we can just be honest, and then so we can move forward. Because in my estimation, we're at a point in our history where this is like our last chance, the last window of opportunity for us to save our country, or it's going to go all the way down the drain. But my answer to this myth of the black criminal is that, were black people criminals before we came in contact with white people? That's one. White society limited black life to a set of bad options and then blamed them for taking them options, right? White society as a whole uses black criminality to justify moving to the suburbs, living in gated communities that you can only access through toll roads and a vigilant police presence. But here's the thing, look, it's funny because the comedian Paul Mooney, he said white people was okay with black people living right side by side with them in the same house, right next door to them, when they had them as slaves. But as soon as they were free, then it's like we can't live in the same community with you, right? But in reality, thug life is a creation of white society. It's the result of hundreds of years of intense and sustained dehumanizing of a segment of the human race. Tupac used to say, "We can't have peace till niggas get a piece," right? We can't have peace in society till niggas get their piece in society, their piece of the pie, right? So the whole society won't be right until we treat black people right. Now in 2023, we have to ask ourselves, how stable is a society where the more affluent segments feel they need to hide behind gated communities, toll roads, and guns? Let's juxtapose this question. What would happen if we empowered all segments of our society? What thug life is dead means is that in 2024, as we speak, 2024 is the age of self-accountability. That's what it's about, right? So white and black people must do what Michael Jackson encouraged us to do and look in the mirror and take responsibility for what they do as individuals and as groups. White people have been in power since Spain sent Christopher Columbus to the New World. So they must take responsibility for what happened on their watch. Multiple land thefts, including like Australia, South Africa, United States, Canada, Kenya, Nigeria, right? We're talking about the British Empire. We're talking about white people, right? And look, in white people, I'm saying this, the reason why we having this conversation, the reason why we need to have this discussion is because at the end, we want to be able to unify. We live together. We have a relationship. We're fellow citizens. We're part of the human race. But when there's an issue inside a family, the family can't just go on like it's not a problem. They got to sit down at the dinner table and address the issue, and then iron out their differences, so they can move forward. So that's what this is about. So this is not like we're not just attacking all white people, okay? So, and I'm not claiming that black people are all innocent either. So that's another thing. So then that's another topic. Black people need a certain message that they need to hear, and white people have a message that they need to hear, right? But white people have been in power. So we went to land thefts, multiple land thefts, genocides around the world, from the Aboriginals in Australia, the Congo under King Leopold, to the Native American Holocaust or genocide, large-scale destructions of the environment, the rainforest, the polar caps, global warming resulting from large-scale emissions of fossil fuels, uses of nuclear weapons at Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the prevailing economic and social imbalances between the global north and south, is only a continuation of the power dynamics set up during the European colonial age. So what I'm saying is that the way that the current state of the world right now is just a natural domino effect of what happened when white people first Christopher Columbus expanded, and then the rest of Europe expanded. They established empires and colonies and stuff, and then later these empires extracted large amounts of wealth from their colonies. And that's why Europe and these Western countries, these white countries, are more powerful, are more well off, more economically. It's not because they're smarter or they're more hardworking. It's not that. It's just a matter of It's like what Karl Marx said. They had like primitive accumulation. They had a head start. So they started the race. The race started unfairly, pretty much. So let's be honest. The decision makers that sit in the institutions that set economic policy are white and motivated by profit alone. We are not asking white people to feel guilty and apologize for what past generations have done, we are earnestly demanding that you change the institutions and structures that perpetuate a legacy of oppression today. What I'm going to say regarding Black accountability doesn't let you off the hook. It's just what they need to hear. So like I said, white people need to hear a certain thing, Black people need to hear a certain thing, okay? Black people, the time has finally come where it's in our best interest to stop pointing the finger at white people and recognize that we have been our worst enemies, at least for the last 50 years. That is since the onset of gangs in the hip hop generation. So like, since like the late 60s, we've been doing it to ourselves. We have killed more of ourselves than we were lynched during the Jim Crow. It's arguable. Will we ever know the full figures, the numbers? Probably not. But we gotta admit though, we killing each other. Like the only reason why Black people, a Black person would deny that we killing each other, if not more equal to how we were during, like how we were lynched during Jim Crow, is because we just want to deny responsibility, man. But you got to think, gang culture, criminal culture, like niggas killing niggas is popular today. A nigga can get famous from killing a nigga. Think about that. Think of all the murders of rappers in recent years. We have had urban centers across the nation for 50, 60, 70 years, even for a century, yet many of our urban centers remain underdeveloped economically, underfunded educationally, and undermobilized politically. This is with a serious class of wealthy professionals, academics, entertainers, and athletes, and a collective purchasing power of $1 trillion, which is more than the gross national product of many countries. Case in point, my hometown Compton boasts a host of millionaires and at least a couple of billionaires, yet it remains blighted and abandoned. We can say that whenever we build something, they come and destroy it. But if we genuinely loved each other, no one could destroy what we created. So we have no lousy excuses to give up. The gangster mentality and the thug identity is played out and really ridiculous in the information age. Like in this information age, think about that. So the gangster thug life image, it used to have a shock effect, like in the late 80s, when NWA came out, and it made a statement, right? We were just but now we just making a fool of ourselves, right? The age where we can learn, grow, and become anything as the world is at our fingertips. So we in the age where we can grow and learn and do, and have what we want, right? The Honorable Marcus Garvey and the Honorable Minister Elijah Muhammad had a vision of us going back to the motherland, establishing political and economic relationships with our brothers. Well, back in the first half of the 20th century, that was more so a dream, as Africa was with the exception of Ethiopia, was colonized by white nations, like I just mentioned. But in this information age where global access is real and Africa is relatively free, their vision is not only tangible, but mandatory. There is no better time for it. We are the only thing standing in our way. So, back to Tupac. If I can encapsulate Tupac's entire message, his discography, and his career in one verse, it will be the final verse of I Ain't Mad at You. And so first of all, the video opens up with him walking up to the gates of heaven, him meeting Red Fox, the guy, the star actor in Sanford & Son. And then Red Fox telling him, I've been struggling to get in heaven for a long time. You're going to have to earn your way in here. And Tupac humbly replies that I'm going to try to do so, sir. Right? It's a beautiful scene, right? And so the last verse, it goes, Father, forgive us for living. Well, all my homies stuck in prison, barely breathing, believing that the world is a prison. It's like a ghetto we can never leave. Broken roses wouldn't bloom through the cracks of the concrete. So many other things for us to see. Things to be, our history so full of tragedy and misery. To all my homies never made it home. The dead peers I shed tattooed tears for when I'm alone. Picture us inside a ghetto heaven, a place to rest, finding peace in this land of stress. In my chest I feel pain coming sudden storms. Life full of rain in this game, watch for land thorns. Our unborn never got to grow, never got to see what's next. In this world full of countless threats, I beg God to make a way for our ghetto kids to breathe. Show a sign, make us all believe. Cause I ain't mad at you. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. So that verse right there, cause you got Pac was a ladies man, or Pac was a thug, or Pac was this. At the core of what Pac was, he was definitely a political revolutionary, but underneath that, he had a deep spirituality, man. This verse is really just like a prayer, because he starts off, Father, forgive us for living while all my homies stuck in prison. Barely breathing, believing that the world is a prison. It's like a ghetto we can never leave. A broken rose giving blooms through the cracks of the concrete. So many other things for us to be, things to see. Our history so full of tragedy and misery. To all my homies never made it home. The dead peers I shed tattooed tears for when I'm alone. Picture us inside a ghetto heaven, a place to rest, finding peace in this land of stress. In my chest I feel pain coming sudden storms. Life full of rain in this game, watch for land thorns. Our unborn never got to grow, never got to see what's next in this world full of countless threats. I beg God to make a way for our ghetto kids to breathe. Show a sign, make us all believe. Is what he's saying, bro. Is there's more to life than just being a criminal, a thug, a hoe, a pimp, a gangster. It's more. Our culture we need to grow. Our definition of ourselves needs to grow. That's why this is the whole purpose, impetus of this channel, bro. Okay? And so that's just a lot. I just let y'all sit on that. We take that in. So the question is, how do we move forward as a people, and how do we move the world forward? Black people are at the center of the world right now. Remember that. I love y'all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.